Welcome to Simmons Says, where I help emerging and struggling writers create intriguing plots and compelling characters to make their stories hard to put down and even harder to forget. Hi there, Simmons Says here. I want to share some thoughts with you about re-energizing and revitalizing inspiration. When you've reached a point in your creative journey where you're just feeling tired, you're just feeling drained, you may be feeling unmotivated, ideas are not flowing freely now, you're struggling. Just sort of what to do in situations like that. And I'm going to base it on some of my experiences, but also the experiences of some people that I respect and revere and follow. So grab some tea, coffee, wine, bourbon, whatever the heck it is, and put your feet up, because here we go. As a writer, a creative most of my life, I don't think that for the first 2/3 of it I thought about why I do what I do, whether it's a career or a choice or not. Initially, it was just a thing, right? And when I started thinking of it as a potential career choice, I was a teenager fresh out of high school, and I didn't have a plan. I really didn't. So after a few years of sort of bumping my head against the wall, pursuing acting as a creative, and I started writing material for myself initially, and then for auditions, which I'll comment on that in a moment. But then out of that came step after step after step of some might call it wandering. Yeah, that's probably a good word for it. Trying to find my way, trying different things to see what would happen, which I guess you could consider it a problem or not, depending on how you want to look at my particular journey and how I looked at it at the time. I was discovering things, things were happening, maybe not lucrative things, but every step brought some new awareness, some new adventure, and sometimes joyful things and other times difficult things. At this juncture of my travels, having been on it a long, long time, I picked up on a few things. And I'm going to comment on those things, some of what happened then and some of what I've learned and what's happening now. Will tie into why I did what I did earlier, even though I didn't know that was the reason at the time. So, first off, the elements. Things that have been lighting the way or sparking the drive or prodding me along for some time. Now, these are 6 things. There's discovery, indignity, curiosity, challenges, playfulness, and memories. Now, those were the main consistent 6. Again, I wasn't necessarily conscious of what they were or how they were affecting me at the time. It was just what's happening, and when you look back, these are thoughts that seem to fit comfortably as identifiers, right? If one were to look at me as character types, I would be an amalgam of 4 things, like the child, because again, if you look at character archetypes, right? The child, which is also considered innocent, the crusader, right? The jester, and those of you who know me, yes, I'm a clown, and the explorer. All right, now remember again, how those things might fit into some of the things that I said I did. I was discovering things, I was trying things, I was performing, I was writing. So a little of these character archetypes definitely made their own personal appearance center stage. I know I'd like to include maybe another one like the rebel, maybe a couple of others after that, more colorful, more aggressive, more indicating leadership capabilities. But I think I was more wandering and, just forging ahead, just continuing to go and stumbling along and sometimes finding things and sometimes falling flat on my face. But now, how do these things fit into my journey as a creative writer? I was always curious as a child, certainly as a teenager, and I don't think that any of that has died in me yet, and that's useful to a writer, to a creative. So I looked at things like, okay, what happened? Why did it happen? How can it be this way? Why would this occur? Why would they do this? How could they say that? I was looking for answers to questions, and sometimes these things would come to me independently, other times in conversations with other people, in traveling and seeing things and experiencing things. Some of those answers or things that seem like answers would come to me, and I'd make note of them. Or I'd meet somebody who made this impression on me. For discovery, that you look for something that maybe people haven't seen before, didn't know existed, or perhaps you just didn't know it existed at the time. But either way, you're discovering something. There was joy in that discovery. You found it. Wow, you discovered this thing. You knew this is maybe going to work for you, right? And that meant you had to continue now to move forward again, with or without certainty, to trek through the darkness, metaphorically speaking, or, okay, sometimes actually. And that took some amount of courage, maybe stupidity at times. But for me, I was going to lean on courage. I'm thinking, well, yes, I'm forging ahead. I'm the great explorer. I'm taking chances. I'm out here solo. So that gave me a little bit of a sense of integrity, right? Bravery. Let's keep going. So the first battery that we can depend on to help re-energize inspiration is curiosity. Stay curious. Always be curious. Because in trying to answer those questions, in trying to find answers to whatever you're curious about, lies the potential to be inspired and energized to go forward even further. That's where we start, with curiosity, not solutions, not certainty, just the willingness to keep asking questions. Now, in part 2, we'll talk about what happens when curiosity isn't enough and what carries you forward then. Next time on Simmons Says.